Over the months, I've been aware of your materials through thoughtful family members. It's all important and timely stuff, which forms a modern-day treasure of information. Since buying your calendar, I've been doing a lot of Sabbath study into the new moon, and I've realized some significant truths along the way. And it says, currently, I'm trying to find the exact Bible references which actually state how to observe the new moon. Plus, why do we need to observe the new moon from Jerusalem? Well, I could answer that. I was all set to answer it, but when I found out you were coming, let's talk about that a little bit, because we do have an issue, people wanting to find every single detail in the scripture, and we need to understand a little bit about history as well. So
one of the things that I love about is this whole idea of time is that there's a skeleton that we find in the scriptures. When I say a skeleton, I'm saying that the framework for understanding God's clock, God's calendar, is right here. There are some historical things in terms of how traditionally and how historically the Jews have followed that. But what I love to do is open up this book. And Michael, folks, this is my book that is for 10 years I always wanted to be my book that I could read. It happens to be the Hebrew Scriptures. And this is what Paul would have read. This is what Yeshua would have read.
That's right.
This is what every New Testament writer would have read.
They didn't have a codex, but they would have been reading the scrolls.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I love to do is I love to look and see, when it comes to issues like this, as I mentioned, I'm dealing with time, Torah, and Tetragrammaton.
What we're talking about here, ladies and gentlemen. He won't show it to you, but this is what it is. This is what Keith is reading and then translating it over into English. He's reading the Hebrew Scriptures. He's fluent in the Hebrew Scriptures now. And so
it's been a process. My friend Nehemiah has done an awesome job of teaching me these last 10 years. But one of the things I love is being able to look in and just see what it is before we get to English. For example, in this man that's written this question, the first thing that I want to do is I want to go to where do we understand this idea of looking to the moon or getting a chance to know where the moon is. And in Exodus chapter 12, it says that Yehovah said unto I'm sorry, you guys, let me get my, help if I'd have my glasses here. Oh, I've got my glasses. Oh, look at me. I'm in Genesis.
Well, good. I'm glad you didn't have
to if I have to borrow your glasses, Michael. Let me do this. In Exodus chapter 12, Vayomer Yehovah said unto Moses and to Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, this shall be the Chodesh for you, the first or the head of the Chodesh for you, for the beginning of the year. Meaning in English it says, this shall be the month for you, the head, the first month of the year that you should actually look at. And so we asked ourselves, well, what does that mean? He's talking to Moses and Aaron, and he's looking up and he's saying, okay, so this shall be the month. Well, if I read the Hebrew and it says the Chodesh, I'm thinking, okay, what's the root of that word? The idea of the new. The Chadash is the same as the word there for new. So as I look through that, I find out that when we see the Chodesh, we're talking about the month. Every month, 29 or 30 days, 29 or 30 days. If you look up and see the beginning of the month, you know that begins the month, the beginning of the year. Real quick, if I go to Deuteronomy chapter 16, which is one I know I talked to you about 10 years ago, it says, guard the Chodesh Aviv, or guard the month of the Aviv.
Yes, and Ha'aviv.
Yeah, Ha'aviv, I'm sorry, yes, Ha'aviv, thank you, Michael. And do the Pesach, saying that was the time that Yehovah took them out of Egypt. So when we see that, we say, so the month of the Aviv, and this shall be the first month for you, we begin to look through the scriptures and it jumps off the page. The idea being that they would be able to look in the month of the Aviv, the barley being Aviv, the new moon, which by the way, I just came from this last year, got a chance to do it, understand it, and put a project together accordingly. It allows people to understand the simplicity of God's clock. The problem today is we've got people that are trying to confuse the matter, and let me just say something. They're using pagan practice and historical issues to screw around, if I can use that word, with God's clock so as to create something where they would not be dependent on Him, but they would be independent. And that's exactly where we're at right now.
That's right. Yeah, because if we go by the mathematical calculations that were derived from Babylon and using the equinox for one thing, which is a Babylonian invention, winter solstice, summer solstice, vernal and autumnal equinox, amen. And then we go by a conjunction, which is a moment in time that you can't see. It can only be mathematically calculated. Well, you can calculate these things centuries into advance, and you can determine when you can reserve hotel rooms and reserve campsites and do all this stuff, but the Almighty says, no, you look up at the heavens, you look at the Aviv, this is my calendar, this is my time clock, and this is how I set my Moedim.